Yeah. Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for coming. My name is Mark Mason, and I have next to me Emilia Szekely, who is co-presenting with me today. We have more people online than we have in the room here with us, and I'm glad we're doing this via Zoom. So thanks very much for joining. We have just 1 hour, so I'm going to get straight into it. About 12 years ago, we had a UNESCO chair on our campus, Rupert McLean, who had a big conference here, a UNESCO chair conference, and he had an invitation from one of the delegates to that conference. His name was Banker Roy. He came from the Barefoot College in Ajmer in India. Banker invited Rupert, our UNESCO chair, to go to visit the Barefoot College and see what they were doing there. Rupert couldn't make it. He invited me to go. I had a great privilege in going across to the Barefoot College. I think it was 2011, and I was struck by what they were doing there. If you know the game of education development or the field of development more broadly, there's an old adage which says that single isolated interventions will likely fail. We have an expression in English for that. It means you're shouting against thunder. Your single isolated intervention is likely not to gain traction and really make a difference in the community where you're working. So typically those of us in education, you can imagine you get money for a 3-year project to enhance learning outcomes in this a particular setting. You go into the setting, you work on your project, and once you leave after 3 years, the money stops and your intervention is isolated. Likely not much change has really happened. But what I saw at the Barefoot College was what is known in the field of development as integrated service delivery, where there was a suite of interventions all working together to make a change in the community which they're serving. To give an example, which is of most interest to us, educating children who are out of school was a difficult question because those children were required to be at home during school hours to help look after the animals, to help look after the crops in the home, etc. So they needed to go to school at night. The problem was there was no electricity. So they established night schools and they established a solar lantern production facility. But they supported that by encouraging children to come to schools by having a water storage and harvesting facility where the school met. So kids would come to class with empty buckets and they would return after class with full buckets of water. So the parents are that much more motivated to send their children to school because they're coming back with fresh water. But that was also supported by a range of other initiatives that included testing of the water in the local aquifers and wells, because there is a high degree of fluoride there, for example. So they would need to test that. They had clinics, they had healthcare, they had children's parliaments, they had village committees, all working in this integrated suite of interventions to make a difference in the community around there. I was very struck by this. Emilia then came to Hong Kong as a PhD student. She came to us from Tsinghua University in Beijing. She had other ideas for a PhD project, and then we had an invitation from the Barefoot College to come and help them sort out a particular question. So I said to Emilia, come on, let's go to the Barefoot College. We can solve this problem. Emilia, I'm talking to you off camera here, but you were a little resistant at first. She said, I've got this idea for my PhD. And I said, but look what we have here. This is amazing. And the reason why Emilia was here and why I found the project so incredible is because, as you probably know, I have a big interest in complexity theory, in understanding change from the perspective and through the lens of complexity theory. And that means, how do I put it in one sentence? That means, I suppose, if you like, that it makes the point that single, linear, limited interventions will likely not make much of a difference in change. If you want to make change, think of a snowball metaphor where a concatenation, a conjuncture of numerous factors work together to increase the economics of increasing returns. It's compound interest. It's the compounding phenomenon work together to gain traction and to make a difference. So Emilia saw the Barefoot College, and we were both amazed by what they were doing in terms of understanding it through the lens of complexity theory. And from there, this project just grew. Emilia did her PhD in the area, and then we generalized it much more widely to try to understand how NGOs, projects, development initiatives, organizations in the field, how they were succeeding and how they were not succeeding. And Emilia has spent a huge amount of time over the past few years traveling to different locations, identifying successful initiatives, projects in the field, and trying to understand how they work, what makes them successful, and theorizing that through the lens of complexity theory. I want to stop there and just show you a very short video on what I've described to you in the Barefoot College. That arrow there.
एक कचौरी खाई, फिर 10 रुपये का इनाम।
I'm sorry. So there you see in a nutshell, actually, one of the videos from the website that we want to share with you now, today as a project outcome, as a huge knowledge transfer project that we've been involved in. But I want to switch now to the second slide in our presentation, which will give you an overview of what we've been doing. The project's title is Development Initiatives, Strategy for Self-Sustainability. How are these projects making sure that they can survive, can flourish, can make a difference in their environment? So what we've been doing is identifying cases where these education development organizations and other development initiatives across the world are implementing and sustaining change in their domain. And we've identified the strategies with them, working with them, that these organizations use to ensure their own self-sustainability. We then understand those strategies and those changes in terms of complexity theory and integrated service delivery as a prime example of that. And then what we've done is to share these strategies and practices with other organizations in the field through the project website and through other means. And of course, we're academics as well. We theorize these strategies, these changes, these cases for publication and other forms of dissemination. We generalized the project outside of just education development organizations. We generalized to much more integrated projects that offered perhaps education development as one of an integrated suite of development initiatives. So you'll see when Emilia comes in now, you will see different examples that are not focused only on our field in education development, but in other areas which different initiatives have been working. So Emilia is going to step in now and start with a video from Gemarita. Emilia.
Yeah, and the PDF, sorry. Yeah. Well, hello everyone. Can they see me? Yeah, okay. Hello everyone, my name is Emilia, and well, as Mark was telling you, we have been working in this project already for around 10 years. And the project has been changing its purpose and form along the time. And the reason for this is that when we went to the Barefoot College, the purpose of that visit was to prepare something like a recommendation or a set of recommendations for the Barefoot College to make their project more self-sustainable, which means, let's say, in very short, stronger and less reliant on external support. That's what they invited us to do. And the proposal since the beginning was that instead of going to this organization in another country and telling people what to do, perhaps instead visiting other interesting projects around in other places that we already were aware of, and seeing what these other guys were doing to resolve the problems that the Barefoot College was trying to resolve, and perhaps sharing this experience with the Barefoot College, because with the idea of trying to make an horizontal transfer of knowledge, no? Instead of giving directions to this organization, trying to share with them what other practitioners in the field have come up with. And this experience was super rich for us, of course, because what we found, sorry, one, it's not the time for that, but what we found is that, of course, people in the field is being very creative. You can imagine, like, of course, what are we talking about? We're talking about development projects, no? Projects that are trying to improve people's quality of life in one realm or another, no? So for example, when the Barefoot College, which problem was how to ensure equitable access to education to these children, we actually visited other projects that perhaps were not only related with education for migrant children in the desert in India, no, but that were also trying to improve their community's life, and that had interesting ideas on how to deal with the problems that the Barefoot College was dealing with. So after visiting a few initiatives in Brazil, in Mexico, in India, and et cetera, we found that all this experience from people in the field that is having to sort out and how to fund it, how to deal with different interests, how to make people participate, et cetera, we found that all this experience was super useful for, well, we made like a list of experiences to share with the Barefoot College. That's what we did there in that moment. But then we thought, well, why would we allow that this information stays only with the Barefoot College? If this is a very rich information that we had access to because we traveled to very interesting places to talk with very interesting and propositive people and proactive people, and we should share it with more people, no? So we created a blog to start to share only those experiences that people were experimenting in the field, let's say, no? And this blog started to gain attention naturally by internet users, whatever. So at some point we got support to make this for real, basically, no? So a few years ago, we got funding to make the blog a bit more professionally, no? And to visit more development projects to try to give a bigger picture of what is happening in the field of practitioners. And we started working on preparing a website in which I think our main message is that if we actually if education wants to be relevant for people's lives and for people building a future that is better for everyone, and that doesn't finish in 3 years because we destroy the planet or with wars or pollution or whatever, we have to start preparing for that. We have to start preparing ourselves, the other generations, even the practitioners, because there's much to learn, no? So we have to prepare for that and to start building an alternative road, we have to help and contribute with tools for this, no? And we, after our experience with the Berkeley College, we found that there is a lot of richness and creativity and things to be shared from the people that is already daring to do something about the problem, that is already not only daring to work against the current and do things for change, but also being very innovative to find ways to sustain them, no? So we found, okay, let's share this, no? And so we have been, as Mark said, investigating different solutions that are on the field, and we have been trying to see if there are things that we can learn from there, right? One of the main goals is to do accessible tools for practitioners and for students that could be interested in social change in the future or whatever, not basically showing the message that there are alternatives and showing how are these alternatives being implemented, no? So that people can learn from the experience of others. So we basically, what we did was to enlarge, what we've been doing is enlarging the catalog, no? This is like, we see this like a hub of solutions, no? A website in which you can get information, like based on bottom-up research, meaning that we are, of course, our lens is complexity theory, as Mark explained, no? Understanding that these initiatives are connected among each other, no? And that change needs to approach all the different dimensions of development, and as Mark was saying, and also that change is related with so many different aspects, and we need to see which ones and how do they apply in concrete realities. So this is what we have been exploring, concrete ideas and concrete implementation strategies that are addressing different development projects like migration, education, environment, equity, etc. No, different. We have visited so far projects in 12 countries, and in total we have interviewed 49 projects. Of course, even if we have tried to be like very concrete and not make a book out of each project that no one will read, we still have like already like 370 pages in each language only about experiences, no? And yes, so for example, well, I'm not gonna read it, I'm just gonna give you the example of projects, no? We are trying to cover different regions, different cultures, different ways of doing, different development areas, no? For example, this collective, and also different kinds of organizations to show people that you don't have to be in an NGO, no? There are people making change in social enterprises or in government or as individuals or student collectives. We are trying to cover all these different profiles, no? So for example, here you see that we identified a collective that is trying to find equitable living conditions in the city by making graffiti interventions, no? Others are, for example, communities in rural areas trying to protect their lands. Others are alternative currencies to solve poverty, etc. No? Just to give projects like the ones we showed you, no? One was the Barefoot College one, the other one was the Waste Bank, no? But it's just to show you that we are trying to show like how people is acting for change, no? And what are the ideas. So for each project, what we do, I'm gonna be like, just give you a very general overview of what the structure of the website, no? And the content. So each project has a post, no? In the pod, you have, first of all, like a video, a small video like the one you saw, sharing the main ideas, no, for people that is interested in, for people to get engaged, let's call it like that, no? Then we basically give a general description of the context of the problem, no? In the case of the Maripa, for example, the problem of waste, or in the case of the Barefoot College, the problem of education and energy. And after giving the, they're having a trouble. After giving the context of the problem that these guys are trying to solve, we try to synthesize, no, what these guys are proposing to solve it and how are they proposing to solve it, no? And of course, after you visit a few projects, you start identifying that there are some kinds of patterns, no? When people, when organizations work in the field, for example, Mark was talking about integrated service delivery. This is something that not only they do, no? As you can see in the Gemaripa Waste Bank, they also somehow do integrated, they have an integrated approach, because they know that if they want to deal with the waste management problem, they have to address the reason why people throw the waste in the street, right? So they are trying to approach it from different angles. But of course, you could not tell them, what you should do is to put solar lamps in the schools for the waste bank, because that would not, that doesn't even make sense. The project is in another country, in another area, no? But the idea, the concept of integrated service delivery, the concept that different areas of development have to be addressed if you want your intervention to be sustained, that's like a generalization, that's a theoretical insight that we started gaining when visiting different projects. Of course, it doesn't work for all of them, but for many, this is a helpful strategy to make their projects sustainable. So when we describe the project and its solution, we are trying to, differently from other websites that have catalogs of organizations, no, that are listings of organizations, here we are trying to say, what did these guys see? Why did they find it problematic? How did they formulate their proposal? And how do they make it, propose a solution and make it happen, no? Like implement their solution? How do they deal, for example, with the lack of funding or with the troubles that they encounter, etc.? So in this post, we try to describe as much as we can, or at least a big idea of how they deal with this situation to try to be sustainable. And this is what we call the specific strategies, no? So for example, in the Barefoot College example, these guys, one way to deal with it is making integrated service delivery, no? But how do they do it in their specific case is by putting, including the water harvesting tanks and the solar lamps for people to be able to study at night, no? And the clinical, the medical services, so that children also see another profit of going to school, etc., etc. This is the way they specifically do it, no? And this is what you see in the paragraph. But then each of the paragraphs of each case study shown in the website, you will see these small icons. I don't know if you can see them. Do you see the arrow here? Well, after each paragraph, you will see small icons that are linked to specific, to these general ideas that I was talking about, no? These theoretical insights that we start finding when exploring projects, no? So again, we talked about integrated service delivery as one of the general strategy, theoretical ideas that we found, but we have already identified more than 80, no? I mean, there are many that you start finding that, oh, people seem to be, for example, using the strategy of diversifying their sources of support, no? For example, trying everything, not to rely on one single funding source. Because if this funding source decides I have another priority now, or the funding is finished or whatever, then what do you do with your program? Everything falls down, right? So many projects, what they do is to try to get different sources of support so the program can be sustained even if one of them fails. So this is another general strategy, for example, that many initiatives implement, but we are not trying to say, and we are very careful not to fall into the trap of saying, oh, this is what works. Even if it sounds super logic that diversifying support works or that integrated service delivery works for sustaining initiatives, we don't dare to say that because development situations can be very different in every place. So all the website is written in a language that basically tells you, this is what seems to be working for many, right? These are the reasons why this seems to be helping them to increase their self-sustainability for you to consider, right? And you want to see exactly how it's working for them, go, well, this is how it works, no? So the one on the left is an example of a paragraph of a case study, no? So you have the links to certain icons, right? Because each strategy that we found, like integrated service delivery again, or diversifying support, whatever, we selected an icon so that the reader can start associating the theoretical reasons for building self-sustainability with the specific practices and ideas to implement it. So we made a post for each strategy, general strategy that we identified, and each general strategy has an icon. So when you are reading the case studies or the experience, the practical experiences, you will see that they are related to this theoretical generalization, no? These general strategies. So, and the other way around, if you reach the website because you were looking for integrated service delivery and you see why is this related with sustainable development, etc., then the website invites you to see the specific experiences of people trying to implement this in reality, no? And that's why you can see the small squares on the bottom of the right post, right? That these ones link you, give you, these ones bring you to the exact paragraph of each case study talking about specific ways of implementing this idea. So it's across all the website, in short, is cross-referencing the theoretical ideas on how to build self-sustainability with the application example. And of course, because one of the main ideas of this website is to make it available for people that is actually interested in joining social change or that is already practicing or whatever, we have tried as much as we can to use a language that is not as so academic, no? And we have been trying to prepare videos like the ones you saw that we can put in the introduction of each post, but also share in social networks. They are about 3 minutes on average, no? With the main ideas of the projects to invite the people to visit the site, no? And the website in general is trying to be like user-friendly, no? Like it has a dark background so that people can read without burning their eyes. And it's trying to be super minimalist because that's the trend now, instead of putting all the information, which was our original intention. We were advised not to do that and make it more, we try to do it very didactic, no? So that people can find their way by themselves in the website, no? And also very important, trying to reach as many people, to try to reach as much people as possible. We have professionally translated all these huge website contents into not only in English, but also in Chinese, Mandarin, Chinese, and Spanish, reaching, you can imagine how many different audiences, right? So just to finish, of course, the idea is to understand what's going on and share these experiences with as much people as possible. We have, of course, the main product is the website that we share, no? This is what we will be trying to make it reach other people, but we have been moving also to make the most of all this knowledge that we are collecting and all these development actors that we are funding to share their experience in the aims of promoting education for sustainable development, no? So with that purpose, we've been presenting the project in different conferences, and we have actually managed to get support to some of the projects. So we got donations for the for a migrant shelter in the south of Mexico, for a rural community in Indonesia. We also, for example, one of the communities that we interviewed in the south of Mexico, a Mayan community, when we shared them what they were doing with the waste bank, they got so excited that they are interested in replicating this in their community. So we started preparing like a manual for them to explore the idea to replicate it, no? And of course, well, these are examples, no? We don't have more time, and if anyone is interested in saying something or sharing any idea or question, please welcome. But of course, the last thing to say is that we are also trying to share this knowledge with our academic community, no, through through publications that in which we are working right now. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Emilia. Colleagues, Emilia mentioned that we have been funded by different organizations through this, and there are 4 funding entities that I want to acknowledge here. One is the UNESCO chair, for the perhaps the lion's share of funding. Second is the CRSE, third is the department, and fourth also is the faculty, and those are acknowledged in our report. But I know we're both extremely grateful that we were able to achieve what we have in terms of knowledge transfer, much more than just publication in journals, but what we have and continue to achieve in the domain of knowledge transfer through continually looking for other projects, for adding to what is on the website. None of this would have been possible without that funding support. That was quite rushed, but we have left some time for questions, comments, discussion. I'm happy to open to the floor. Now, we're going to try and manage it both online and